Yo, what's going on people? It's your boy Huncho, back at you again with another video. Now, recently on the channel we've been going over various firearm related incidents, whether that be the importation of firearms and how they get into the UK, or even just the other day we seen that a 19-year-old was caught by Metropolitan Police officers carrying not one but two Scorpion machine guns. Well, we are here once again, but this time around a man has been jailed after he was caught with quite literally a Grand Theft Auto weapon wheel. So this story starts back in 2019 where the National Crime Agency and detectives from the Metropolitan Police Service had been in a joint operation targeting individuals who were purchasing firearms off the internet. This came as a result of NCA investigators working in the National Firearms Targeting Centre, which is the UK's firearms intelligence hub based within the agency, and they had been working alongside the Spanish Guardia Civil, again in an operation which targeted people buying firearms online. So by the time October of 2019 comes around, 32-year-old Darren Dixon had been flagged up by the relevant agencies working on this operation, where they noticed he purchased 6 firearms from a website based in Spain, and a further 3 were purchased from a Slovenian website. The guns had been shipped to his home address in Kentish Town, London. You see, what he was doing, he was buying blank firing guns and was converting them into fully working firearms that could shoot live ammunition using a toolkit that he had in his bedroom. For some of the firearms he had imported, Darren would go on to sell them on a gun website in the UK. Here he sold the ones I believe he couldn't convert whilst keeping the lethal ones for himself. When detectives finally made their arrests, again back in October of 2019, they would go on to seize 240 exhibits from his home address, which included 26 firearms, again a range of different types of firearms, 102 rounds of ammunition, poisonous ricin seeds, fake ID warrant cards for the Metropolitan Police and Interpol, plans containing the address of a fine art dealer and a valuable painting, again the converter toolkit, a notebook containing a handwritten recipe for making gunpowder along with the ingredients, balaclavas, cans of CS gas, black tactical gloves, various zombie knives, explosives, gunpowder, smoke grenades, and garrotes, which for anyone who doesn't know is a strangulation tool. So as you can see, he quite literally had a GTA weapon wheel. Upon being arrested, it was heard that Darren had made a quote number of significant comments to police, and one thing that he did go on to say was, quote, it became a bit of an addiction with these guns, in reference to collecting the guns, adding that a couple of them had been converted and he had some ammunition and some of it had been imported. He told police, none of this has anything to do with my partner, she thinks they're all blank firers. When he got to Islington police station, he continued to communicate with police and said, if you look on my laptop, you'll see a file marked Hawkeye or something similar. He went on to say it has all the details of all that I've sold and it has the details of all that I've done with the guns. Within emails to customers, it did show that Darren displayed an in-depth knowledge of both firearms and the legalization of them. In March 2020, Darren would go on to admit to 2 counts of fraudulent evasion of a prohibition, selling a prohibited weapon, 5 counts of possessing a prohibited weapon, possessing a firearm without a certificate, possessing ammunition without being a registered dealer, making an explosive substance, possessing an explosive substance, and 3 counts of forgery. In court, the prosecution said, so in relation to any assertion of naivety by Mr. Dixon, or any assertion that he was simply a fantasist whose hobby got out of control, there are matters with a more sinister interpretation of the evidence. What the prosecution meant by this is because Darren had the information of the fine art dealer, something more sinister was planned rather than him just collecting guns. You see, because in a bit more detail, it's believed there was post-it notes with details of the dealer and his wife's daily movements. The prosecutor said that could be seen as evidence of Darren conducting research for future criminal activity targeting the fine art business. In regards to the counterfeit police ID warrant cards, it's believed that one had been being used back in September of 2016 to gain entry to an address in Camden. In that situation, it's believed that a suitcase had been removed from the property which contained a large quantity of money. The prosecution said although this is the case, it can't be proved that the defendant was that particular individual or one of those individuals that exercised that warrant on that day. But of course, he did plead guilty to this situation, and because of this, he was jailed to 8 years in prison. In sentencing, Judge David Tomlinson said, "The most serious part in my judgment involves you supplying prohibited firearms to other individuals, which you certainly did on 4 occasions. Similarly, you were in possession of more prohibited items with intent to supply them to other interested parties. I'm sure this was a part-time business, though not a very profitable one. I cannot dismiss this as a foolish hobby shared with enthusiasm with like-minded individuals. You supplied these items to people about whom you knew nothing." And so, for Darren to only receive 8 years in jail, even though he pled guilty, is a pretty light sentence to you, seeing as he got caught with all of these items. Now, what I didn't say in the report was 16 of the 26 firearms that he had in his possession were actually lethal firearms. So again, to only get 8 years just based off the firearms is again pretty light, to be honest. And the fact that he also had ricin on him as well, again, to only get 8 years for that, I'm genuinely baffled at that sentence. But again, 8 years is what the judge thought was reasonable in this case, so we can't really argue that at the end of the day. But what do you guys think of this? Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comment section below. Give the video a little like, and if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Huncho, and I'm out.